Welcome back to Your Yankee Chronicle. I'm Abby Peel, your host. 250 years ago, the town of Warner became official. Join us now from the Warner Historical Society Upton Chandler House to Rebecca Corser. Tell us more.
So Warner is celebrating its 250th anniversary this year. We became incorporated on September 3rd, 1774. But of course, people have been living here for thousands of years, indigenous people. And they were traveling up and down the river systems here, the Warner River, the Kentucky to the Merrimack. We know that they had site locations, particularly over in the Henniker area. There have been remnants found along the Warner River of them being here, fishing plummets, grinding stones. So they were definitely here. And Warner tried to become established with settlers from Amesbury, Massachusetts in the 1730s and 40s, and they built 5 crude log cabins. They tried to start working on a mill. They would come up here during the summer months and return to Amesbury during the winter, and they came back in the spring, and their cabins and the mill site had been burnt by the Native Americans. So it's really not until the 1760s after that Warner starts to have a flood of settlers arrive and then start the community, which would become a township in 1774. And that was granted by the King's Council. We were not independent at that time. And the settlers had been calling it New Almesbury because they had come from Amesbury. But Governor and Council wanted the name to become Warner, probably after men from Portsmouth who sat on the King's Council by the name of Warner. So Warner is defined really by the river that runs through it. It bisects practically half of Warner, with Mount Kearsarge to the north, which you see in this lovely painting by Mimi Wiggin. And then we have the Warner River running before the village here, and then the Minks are in the south. So that helped define where Warner was going to be settled, first in Davisville along the river, where the mills were eventually established, and then coming up through what we know today as Lower Warner, Bagley, the Warner Village, Waterloo, Roby, and Melvin Mills. The water power along the river would help to establish these little villages. So if there was a drop in the water naturally, then they would capitalize on that. And sawmills, grist mills, clapboard, shingles, paper, carding, wooden pegs, wooden hubs, chairs, excelsior, bedsteads, all sorts of things were produced along these little villages along the Warner River. And what would help them to grow would be the establishment of the railroad, which came through in 1949, and then eventually up through Bradford. And then it would take another 14 years or so before it could get up over the Newberry Cut to Lake Sunapee. But once that was established, then farmers and mill owners could ship their goods up and down the East Coast, and farmers could send their milk, their eggs, their produce to the larger markets, particularly in the Boston area. So after the Civil War, people obviously started moving west for better agricultural opportunities. Industrialization was happening, and people were moving to work in mills in various locations. But for farmers, after the Civil War, agricultural colleges started to be established. There was changes in technology that farmers could use on their farms. There was a movement to improve the fertilization of the land so they could produce more hay. Maple sugaring was happening. Initially, farmers would boil their syrup down for sugar because it was easier and more compact to ship, and it was dry and it would not spoil. Once canning came along, then they could start canning their syrup and started to send their liquid maple syrup to market. Also, with the trains going through to Newberry, people having more income, summer tourist season started and boarding houses were established. And people would travel through on 7 to 8 trains that were going through Warner at that time during the week to bring people up to the lakes during the summer. The first snow train came to Warner, believe it or not, in 1931. People came up from Boston for the day. There was probably between 200 to 300 people. We had no ski tow at that time, but they were willing to climb the hills, Torrey Hill, Burnt Hill, and ski down. And it's not going to be until World War II that Jack Chandler would buy a Quonset hut and a tow rope from Contoocook and bring it here to Breakneck Hill, and started the first ski tow. And things started to take off. People came to town, bought up the old summer boarding houses, and created hotels that were very busy during the winter months. So for the 250 years, the committee decided that we wanted to stretch events out over the course of the year and make these events fun, informative, available to all sorts of age groups. In May, we'll be involved with Spring into Warner, which is on the 18th. We're revealing a large cake on the lawn of the Sugar River Bank. Jim McLaughlin has handcrafted, beautifully carved signs for both the Dalton Covered Bridge, or Joppa Bridge, some people know it as, and also the Waterloo Bridge in Warner. And the signs are quite striking, and they'll be on both ends of the bridges, and we will start unveiling that at 10 at the Dalton Bridge and 10:45 in Waterloo. We're working with the New England Covered Bridge Association on a booklet they'll be producing about covered bridges and railroad covered bridges that existed along the Warner River, and that will come out later in the year. May 27th is the annual Memorial Day Parade that we do in conjunction with the American Legion. Kearsarge Regional High School Band will be playing music and will lead us on the parade from the Town Hall up to the Pine Grove Cemetery. And the American Legion will be having an open house to recognize veterans. June 15th, here at the Historical Society, we'll be opening up our exhibit of Warner's 250 years. And that exhibit will be open on Tuesdays from 1 to 4 and Saturdays 10 to 1 from June throughout Fall Foliage Festival weekend. Then we have some fun music. Nick's other band is going to be playing down at the Jim Mitchell Park. We'll have food, there'll be raffles, and they'll play probably from 5 to 8:30. July 4th is always a big event here in Warner with the July 4th Pancake Breakfast starting 7:30 to 11 at the church in Warner. Accompanied with a new activity, we'll be having a blueberry and strawberry bake sale at the same time. So you can come have breakfast and get your dessert for later in the evening on July 4th at the church. August 25th is going to be the Lower Warner Meeting House annual church service that we do in conjunction with the United Church of Warner, and that will be starting at 10 a.m. We're doing a Town Reads, which is going to read about Warner's town history written by Walter Harriman, and that will take place on September 8th at the Town Hall at 4 p.m. September 14th is another big day. That's the Incorporation Day. Caleb Parsons is going to be reading the proclamation that declared that Warner had become a township. And we'll have music by the Hopkinton Town Band, and we'll be providing hamburgers, hot dogs, chips, and drinks. So that will be starting around 4 o'clock on that Saturday. October 11th, 12th, and 13th, Fall Foliage Festival. The theme is Happy Birthday to Warner. So there'll be, hopefully, lots of interesting floats for the parade this year on Sunday, which starts at 1. All the museums will be open with exhibits. And on October 14th, which is Indigenous Peoples Day, we'll be having a planting of an elm tree in the Arboretum up at the Indian Museum to celebrate that day. November brings Veterans Day. And with Veterans Day, we're going to work with the Legion to produce a little history of the American Legion Hall being built in 1930s. And we will also be having probably a supper at the Town Hall to celebrate this event. We will have our final closeout event at the Mount Kearsarge Indian Museum on December 21st, where we'll have a winter solstice event with bonfires, cocoa, s'mores. People can write their resolutions and throw them into the bonfire and send good wishes for Warner to celebrate their 300th anniversary 50 years from now. If you want more information about what's happening, you can go to the Warner Historical Society Facebook page or to the website or to the Kearsarge Area Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Rebecca. There is so much to do in our region, and especially during Warner's 250th anniversary celebration. For a complete and up-to-date rundown of all of their activities during the year, go to warnerhistorical.org and click Warner's 250th events. Hannah Flanders of Sweet Beet Market and Cafe will give us an update on the activities of the Kearsarge Food Hub. And we'll close with David Ernster, another one of MJ Harrington's fine craftsmen. Tune in to our replay of Game of the Week this Sunday and Monday at noon and 7 p.m. This week, it's girls basketball as Kearsarge hosts Monadnock. Check out the program schedule at ycnnow.com for the most up-to-date information on games, Yankee Chronicle, and specials. I'm Abby Peel. Join us again next week at this same time as we come to you from MJ Harrington Jewelry on Main Street in Newport for an all-new edition of Yankee Chronicle.
This program is supported by H.R. Clough and Kearsarge Heating. Their full-service model offers oil delivery, propane, motor fuels with design, installation, service, and maintenance of all types of oil, gas, and alternative energy systems, as well as air conditioning, water conditioning systems, and their highly trained and friendly staff will assist you throughout the process of buying, installing, and servicing a full line of energy products. H.R. Clough and Kearsarge Heating. Echo Communications, a digitally integrated commercial printer and mailer located in New London, New Hampshire since 1997, with roots going back much further as the country press, AccuMail, and the home of the Kearsarge shopper. Echo Communications. Main Street Bookends of Warner, for books, toys, games, cards, gifts, and a gallery of local art. Main Street Bookends of Warner. The Innertown Record, your weekly hometown community newspaper covering the Kearsarge Sunapee Sunshine region of New Hampshire. The Innertown Record.